People are saying some of the scenes that we're seeing unfolding now on the border between Poland and Belarus are reminiscent of what we saw during the worst of the migrant crisis in 2015. Talk us through what's happening and how we got here.
Yeah, I'll just say reminiscent, you're right, of the 2015 crisis, with the main difference that since then, EU has really reinforced, stepped up its external borders, especially borders with Belarus. Look, what's going on here is what the EU foreign policy chief has called the weaponization of human beings. And there's really no other way of putting that. There are no angels in this conflict. Poland doesn't have a monopoly on righteousness and being right in this. And Belarus is not the be-all and end-all of all evil. But if there is one main takeaway, it is that Belarus's strongman president, he's been called the last dictator of Europe for a reason, Alexander Lukashenko, has essentially been manipulating, exploiting, enlisting human beings, people, mostly from the Middle East. We're talking Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Congo, Cameroon, people fleeing often extremely desperate situations, as we've seen in the past. And what's he doing? He's enticing them to come to Belarus. Now, why Belarus? Because he's promising, once there, often very easy visa-free entry into Belarus. They're not staying in Belarus. They are being shepherded. They are being literally almost escorted, although Belarus will never explicitly put it this way, to the border. And not only are they taking them to the border with Poland and Latvia and Lithuania, but once they're there, there are reports that the Belarus border guards are actually giving them the implements and the tools to make it easier for them to try to breach that border. That is with wire cutting, razor wire cutting tools, so that they could try to breach the border fences. Except what's waiting for them on the other side of that border fence, Jeannie, and this is why we use the term they are stranded, literally stranded, these migrants, Polish border guards. Polish border guards who have orders to make sure they do not make their way into Polish territory. I don't even know if I could. We have a map, perhaps that we could perhaps put up showing the border right now. There is a planned border wall that Poland. It's not a big deal if we don't have it, but there it is. There's a planned border wall, as you can see, along that shared border between Poland and Belarus, a Donald Trump-style wall that Poland's going to build. In the meantime, there's a razor wire fence, but beyond that, there's a 2-mile deep demilitarization zone. So these migrants, when I say they're trapped and stranded, they cannot go back to Belarus because the Belarusian border guards are there to stop them from doing that, and they cannot move forward into Poland because the Polish border guards are waiting them on the other side. Meanwhile, they're camped out in freezing, getting colder temperatures, lots of women, lots of children, reports of deaths as well. A horrible situation all around. No angels on either side, but you can blame Lukashenko for most of the blame in sending the migrants that way.
Now, Belarus, of course, is accusing Poland of violence against some of these migrants. What are Poland and the European Union, of which Poland, of course, is a member, saying about what's happening?
Yeah, well, we just saw a little bit of what Poland's doing. As far as what it's saying is, Poland's prime minister yesterday accused Belarus essentially of terrorism, of weaponizing this crisis, a humanitarian crisis. Now, EU has not called it terrorism, but we have. I quoted the EU foreign policy chief saying this is a weaponization of human beings, and we have the EU in the face of the European Council President, Charles Michel, who was actually in Warsaw himself yesterday, basically saying that Europe is going to be showing solidarity and unity with Poland on this issue, siding with Poland against Belarus. Poland an EU member, Belarus not an EU member. And why is Europe doing this? Delicate for Europe because, as we know, Europe is in a showdown right now with Poland on other issues, on the big issue of judiciary independence, on the big issue of whether European law is supreme, should take supremacy over Polish law. The Poles have begged to differ and say that Polish law should take precedence. There's that big confrontation over law. The EU is separating that. They're saying our core values are human beings and protecting human beings. We could share that, which is why we are going to give Poland all the support they need.
And what makes this thorny situation even thornier is there's also Russia involved in all of this. Explain to us about that.
Well, Belarus is a Russia-aligned nation. Vladimir Putin has been, if not an outspoken supporter of Alexander Lukashenko, no love lost between these two men. He has been a tacit supporter, and the two men have frequently been seen together. Look, the Russians have been spinning this. I'll use the word spinning this in the sense that this is EU's problem. The EU has reached out. Angela Merkel, as we know, did call Vladimir Putin, and essentially his message to her was, this is an EU migration problem. Deal with it. Russia says, we'll help you get in touch with Minsk. We'll give you maybe Lukashenko's phone number. Call him. Deal with it. This is your problem. Don't be inhumane. The way you're dealing with this is unacceptable. So Russia basically boomeranging it right back in the Europeans' face. But at the end of the day, as I said, this is a manufactured crisis, and this is something that is directly traceable to the politically motivated actions of Lukashenko, who's trying to get revenge at the Europeans for daring to impose sanctions on his regime.
Doug, thanks so much for that. That's France 24.